We're very proud to have a chance to talk to Father Paul Kramer again. He is back tonight. He has been a little bit under the weather, dealing with some health issues, but he's doing much better. Happy to hear that. Father Kramer, are you there? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. So you sound great. You feel much better, I assume?
Yes, indeed.
Good. Very good. All right, well, the rest of the world isn't. So I don't mean to ruin your day, but while you've been away, as you well know, this thing is inching closer and closer to the nuclear abyss. And the other day, yesterday in fact, the Russian national television had a little story on about a nuclear weapon that the Ukes, as I call them, have sequestered in a town near the eastern Donbass region, full of Ukrainians, and the Russians are saying they're going to light it off and kill off a whole bunch of Ukrainians, which the Ukrainian government couldn't care less about, and blame Russia. It's called a false flag event. And once that happens, it's Katie bar the door, because anything could happen thereafter. Anything. But there is confirmation, according to Russian national television, of one tactical nuclear weapon having been sequestered in a Ukrainian town not far from the combat zones that are currently inflamed. I think you heard that.
There is nothing that is too dastardly for them to pull off. When you consider who is behind them, they're capable of anything.
Well said. I concur. They are capable of anything, and nothing would surprise me. Nothing. They know that in 20 days, the midterm elections are going to occur here, and they also know that in all likelihood, politics, for whatever it may still be worth, the Republicans are going to take charge of the House and the Senate, in all likelihood, unless the elections are hyper-rigged again. And if that happens, the military avalanche, the cascade of equipment and materiel into Ukraine, the Bolshevik Zionist government of Ukraine, or regime. Remember, they've outlawed all political opposition. They've outlawed anybody who speaks out against them. It's typical Zionist behavior. So that's going to be cut off or cut way back. So if they're going to do anything, it's my sense that they're going to do it within the next 3 weeks. And I mean by way of a tactical nuke false flag operation. Sound logical to you?
It sounds like something that I've been expecting.
Tell us your view then, Father Kramer. Where are we with this whole charade, and deadly charade, I should hasten to add, because over 100,000 Ukrainian men and women, they're drafting women up to the age of 50 into the military, have been ground up in the Russian grinder so far. That's just the Ukrainian side, and that's the dead, 100,000 plus. So this is a big deal.
We are entering what I call the red zone for World War III, starting sometime early next month until the end of next year. During that time frame is when I expect the World War to break out. Not that I expect the World War to be breaking out next month, but the proximate events leading up to the World War, I think could start as early as next month. So what you're saying to me comes as no surprise. We can expect some other events before the actual World War III breaks out. What I know about this, I get insights from reliable prophecies. The Message of Fatima. One man who read the secret, of course, was Malachi Martin.
Yes.
He was there at the meeting when John the 23rd opened the envelope and read the secret. Because of his linguistic abilities, he was a specialist in Semitic languages, and he spoke many modern languages, and he was there in order to be able to be interpreter for various cardinals and prelates in a number of languages. So that was the purpose for him being there. So he was privy to the content of the secret because he was there when it was open. And he said, events in Russia and Ukraine, and he mentioned Kiev in particular, Russia and Kiev, that these events would be the catalysts that would lead to the setting off of World War III. Now, he said this in, I think, 1997. And now we see these events are taking place. There are some other events.
Yeah, he was ahead of the game. I wish he were here now. Go ahead.
Yes, he was 78 years old when he died, I think, in 1998, so I wouldn't expect him to be around any longer, even if he had not died under mysterious circumstances back then. There are other events that we can look for that will be signals that the World War is about to begin. In other words, when do we call it a world war? I would tend to think that when Russia will make a massive invasion of Europe, that would qualify as a world war. So I don't see that happening until we see some other things taking place first. One is there will be a communist revolution. They may not call themselves a communist party like they did in the old days in Italy, the Partito Comunista Italiano. I don't think that party exists anymore. None of the political parties that existed in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or 70s and 80s exist now because that republic was replaced with another constitution. All the parties changed their names because of all the corruption they had. So it will be a left-wing communist party, even if it's not called the Italian Communist Party anymore. It will be a left-wing revolution that will precede World War III. Now, an interesting fact is that now that Giorgia Meloni is the Prime Minister of Italy, the left-wing forces would have a strong motive to overthrow this new Italian government. The government is popular. The Italian people are not of the old left. As in France, the old left-wing politics is dead. And
you know what the Italians seem to be hung up on? And I'm not knocking them. They like change. They've had more governments since World War II than any other nation on earth times 10. They just continually change governments. It happens. The Georgia, by the way, as you know, is a hard and fast globalist. There's no question about it. None.
But the left-wing forces do not like her. And
I hope not. Yeah.
What they will do, what gives me a great insight into what could happen, is something that happened in the 1970s, early 80s. Now, I had a friend who spoke to a communist senator. He was an American, but he had Italian friends, and one of them had an uncle who was a senator of the Communist Party. And the man hated Americans, and he knew that my friend was an American. And so the man said to him, we're not going to make the same mistake as what they did in Portugal. Remember in 1974, they had a left-wing revolution, but it fizzled, and you basically got them the Suarez government, which was a rather moderate center-left government that was not what the Marxists were looking for. The revolution fizzled, and he said they made their move at the wrong time. He says, we're not going to make that mistake in Italy. He says, we have control of all of the security apparatus, in the military, the police, in every branch of law enforcement. We hold the key positions, and we can overthrow the government whenever we want.
Got it? Yeah.
Now, the reason why they can do that is because they those key positions are occupied by men who belong to the order of Freemasonry. In those days, it was called P2, Propaganda Due.
I remember P2. Yeah.
They changed their names, but it's the same organization basically. And the man who was in charge of that was a man by the name of Licio Gelli, and reputed to be a fascist. And he was indicted for the bombing of the railway station in Bologna, I think in 1980, and such.
Oh, that's right. And I remember.
That was and that was attributed to the fascists. But in fact, the man who had the control over the Red Brigades was Licio Gelli in the P2, which of course were on the opposite end of the spectrum, extreme left wing. So that's how politics really operates. It's like they say in the CIA, nothing is as it seems.
Nothing indeed, as it seems, yeah.
So even though you have a democratically elected, what is called the center-right government in Italy, and they were voted in by the people don't want to overthrow the government. Those who have an interest in overthrowing the government may overthrow this government in a not-too-distant future. So one of the things we can look for is a left-wing communistic revolution in Italy, and that's one of the signs that the Third World War is very near. And
give us that, Father Kramer. Give us that again. One of the signs. Just rephrase that, if you would. Make sure everybody got it.
One of the signs that the Third World War is very near is when we see a communistic revolution in Italy, a left-wing communist government that will overthrow the present regime in Italy.
Okay. Well, they've had their runarounds with communist and liberal left groups for a long time there, so it wouldn't be a big shock.
No. So that's one thing to look for as a sign that the World War is very near. Another thing, I've been saying this for decades, that an event in the Middle East, I was pointing out Iran in particular, and more than 10 years ago, but maybe it was 2012, maybe it was 10 years ago, I was interviewed, and I mentioned that one of the signs we can expect would be an event taking place in Iran that would set off the immediate catalyst that would set off World War III. Would be taking place in Iran. And now we see Israel striking targets in Syria, and I think they're also striking targets in Iran. We're not hearing about this in the mainstream media, but I believe it is happening.
They keep that quiet. I think the Israelis are hitting Iranian targets as their technology allows them to. We know they're sure as hell hitting Syrian targets all the time. And I don't know that one Israeli plane has ever been taken down by a surface-to-air missile. I think they've got their technological ducks in a row, and they're able to protect their aircraft and crews.
Well, Israel has made it very clear that they will not tolerate any nuclear weapon in Syria. And the Hezbollah, of course, is very powerful in Syria. And they've had weapons development facilities in Syria, and the Israelis have been bombing those things. And I think
have been killing people, bombing those things with utter, complete arrogance, and they couldn't care less about any consequences. They just do what they want to do. Try and stop us. They don't care.
And that attitude is going to cost Israel very dearly, because there's going to be a tremendous blowback for that, and they seem not to foresee that will happen to them.
Well, we'll see. All right, Vatican involvement in Ukraine. Where do you see it? Where's it going?
Well,
what's the Pope? The Pope, what's he doing? What's his public posture on this?
Bergoglio's agenda, of course, and everything has to be seen in this light. Bergoglio's agenda is identical with that of the United Nations Agenda 2030. So everything he does is to promote that and to bring that to bring out facilitate the implementation of that, to make that a reality.
Right.
So that is why he takes the side of Ukraine, even though he wants to present himself as more neutral these days. I guess presenting himself as something of a peacemaker. But
he's a Christian Zionist. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'd leave out the word Christian.
Okay. Well, you got touche. Well said. I agree with you. Good.
I've written a 643-page volume specifically on this question of Bergoglio and Benedict. What is the agenda of Bergoglio and who put him into power? Benedict was pushed out of office, and he made it rather clear in his own statements that that's what happened. But he didn't say it too explicitly. That same saying, things are not as they appear.
Things are never as they appear. Not anymore.
They're never as they appear. Things are never. Yes, this avalanche of death that you mentioned is something that is foretold in the third secret of Fatima.
Uh-huh.
And there will be other global catastrophes that are mentioned in the third secret of Fatima. As I mentioned, it is in the secret, foretold. It was first read by Pope Pius XII in 1957, but not published. It was again opened. It was published. The fact that it was open was published in 1960 when John the 23rd opened it.
Uh-huh.
But the text has never. The text of the secret has never been published. But what we know from so many people who either had direct contact with people who knew the secret, or with some who actually read it themselves, who spoke about it. We know that one of the main events that's going to precede the great global catastrophes will be the collapse of the organizational structure of the Catholic Church. In other words, starting with the Vatican, we have seen pretty much the collapse has taken place already. The Vatican is now taken over by alien interests, interests that are hostile to Catholicism.
Right.
They masquerade as being Catholic, but Bergoglio and his gang are not Catholic. Their religion is the UN Agenda 2030.
That's it. I hope you're listening, everyone, very closely. This is important. This is arguably one of the most powerful institutions in recorded history, if not the Catholic Church. And they are absolutely Agenda 2030 driven. No question. Go ahead.
And quite some years ago, I give you the precise details in my book. I think in the first volume, the first volume of the book that I mentioned, which is called "To Deceive the Elect." That's volume 1, where Bergoglio said that he intends to remain in office until his reforms will be made irreversible. Now he said this to the former head of the Jesuits, Father Adolfo Nicolas, a very old retired priest. When he went to the Philippines, I think that was That was quite a few years ago. I don't remember which year, but when he went to the Philippines, Father Nicolas was in Manila at the time, and Father Nicolas gave an interview, and he in his interview he mentioned the conversation he had with Bergoglio, and that Bergoglio had confided to him that he did not want to leave office until his reforms were irreversible. So his reforms are to have some Christian, apparently Catholic, window dressing on a new religion, which will be the global religion of the UN Agenda 2030. The environmentalism, of course, is very much the part of the nature worship, which is at the core of the UN global religion that they're planning. With the abolition of the Mass, then you're going to see great catastrophes, such as Malachi Martin said about the third secret. He said a large portion of the North American continent will be washed away. Now, what does he mean, washed away?
Okay, hold on, please. This is very important. It ties in with something that many of you are already picking up on. Please rephrase the origin of that statement and then go through it again. This is very important. I want everyone to be on board with this. Go ahead.
A large portion of the North American continent will be washed away.
Okay.
An entire nation will be annihilated.
Where did this come from again?
This is what Malachi Martin said in an interview
our listeners,
about what is in the third secret. Okay. And the canonized Saint Padre Pio, Saint Pio of Pietrelcina, said the same thing. A very large country, and he pinpointed North America. And on another occasion, he even said Canada. Canada wiped out.
Well, all right. Now, let me bring you up to speed, unless you already know, and even then, I'll repeat it for everyone out there. I was informed some time ago that the Poseidon torpedo, which is much larger than any normal torpedo that the Russians have, and they have deployed it, it is out there, is designed to carry a dialable. They can dial it from 2 megatons to 50 megatons. A dialable warhead clad in cobalt-59. When that torpedo, or let's just take, for fun, the hypothetical situation of a pre-positioned nuclear bomb that is booby-trapped and nobody can touch it in international waters 12 miles off the Pacific and Atlantic or Gulf coast. I think it's a 12-mile limit now. And if that 50 megaton warhead, either carried by a missile or one of the Poseidon torpedoes or pre-positioned there, I actually been told that they're already there in some places. If that 50 megaton warhead goes off, it will drive a 2,000-foot tall tsunami directly on shore of the coast that it is exploded off of and wipe out everything in its path for dozens of miles. And then inland, depends on the geography, could be 100 miles inland. That much water going in will scrub everything off the surface of the earth. In many cases, there'll be a few tall buildings left if foundations are tough enough, but that's what that may be talking about.
That's a possibility. And another thing is, it could be something volcanic, like the volcano in Iceland. If that had a Krakatoa type of eruption, where Iceland could be completely obliterated, like the island of Krakatoa no longer exists.
Right.
The geography of Canada is that it would be washed away.
Well, I think you have a point, and that could well be part of the scenario. There could be a massive Krakatoa-sized eruption. However, the tactics of fighting a nuclear war do not necessarily warrant a nuclear winter, and the Russians are going to use the oceans to do the damage and keep the nuclear winter aspect of a ground burst or an air burst, low air burst, from throwing up countless tens, hundreds of millions of tons of particulate matter into the atmosphere, radioactive, of course, but that's your nuclear winter. Now, if they use the oceans to do the damage, and they light off one of these off, say, New York or anywhere on the East Coast, Miami, goodbye, gone, just gone. Everyone drowns, everyone's swept away, virtually. There'll be a few survivors, but that is another way of using water to do the work of a nuclear explosion. And that may be what the washed away phrase pertains to.
And also, there could be something, there are weapons that we might really not know about, truly secret weapons.
Correct. Yes.
What Donald Rumsfeld referred to as the unknown unknowns. And this is something that would fall in that category. Again, the secret of Fatima, as Cardinal Ratzinger, before he became Pope Benedict XVI, once said, that what is in the third secret has been said in other Marian apparitions, and he's talking about the authentic ones. And one of them is the apparitions of the Blessed Virgin Mary to Blessed Elena Aiello. She was beatified by Pope Benedict shortly before he withdrew from his papal ministry. And in the message, the heavenly message that she received, she said, Russia will attack America with secret weapons. Now, what are these secret weapons? They could be weather weapons. They could be things that deal with the environment. Pope John Paul II did say that the oceans will rise and great land masses are going to be completely inundated.
Sounds a little bit like a tsunami, doesn't it? And we're going to lose tens and tens and tens of millions of people if these are lit off on the East Coast, the Gulf Coast, and the West Coast. No question. None.
Pope John Paul II said that millions will die from one moment to the next because continents will be flooded when the oceans rise.
Correct. 40% of American people live within 5 miles of the coast, 10 miles, something like that, eminently available to a tsunami. So there's a very interesting statement you just made. Yeah. So
we're looking forward to bleak times. And again, as Malachi Martin said, that what is in the secret, it's a very bleak message. It refers to epidemics that will wipe out nations overnight.
Oh, cholera? Just imagine what's going to happen if let's just say that these ocean-borne nukes are used with a Poseidon torpedo or prepositioned nukes or nukes from hypersonic missiles. You're going to have a complete breakdown of all law and order, of all medical, of all kinds of 9/11 police assistance. We'll be back in the mid-1800s here in a flash because they're going to use EMPs along with those. And they'll take out all the computers, all the communication systems. This country will turn into a hellhole real quick.
And, of course, the reason why God will allow all of these dreadful things to take place is because we're living in times that are worse than the days of Noah, when the flood washed away everything. And we're going to have something.
Well, here's another flood. I agree. It's right there.
Another flood, and we're going to have worse. And then we're going to have worse than that. And that's because the law of God was promulgated first by Moses and the prophets, and then by the apostles of Jesus Christ. The law of God was published promulgated among the nations, but the law of God is not observed. And we are living in times that are worse than the days of Noah, when the earth was filled with violence. That's the phrase in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, about the days of Noah, that the earth was filled with violence, and today the earth is filled with violence.
Overflowing with violence, and the potential violence on the shelf is unimaginable. This thing could, if there is a false flag nuke lit off in Ukraine by the Uk government in a small town in the east of the country, and it kills 10, 20,000 people, that will open the door, and I don't see anybody shutting it.
Indeed. And I think an overreaction on the part of Israel can really exacerbate the situation. Remember, Putin said he made his pivot to the Middle East, and I think that what that means is the coming war, the invasion of Europe from Russia, will be preceded. It will be almost simultaneous but preceded by an Islamic invasion of Europe from the south. And that will be Iranian-led, but it will be the invasion route will be through northern Africa in the Italian peninsula, and that's something we can expect to take place just before the invasion of Europe and the general global war that will result.
Very good. Or very bad. What is our time frame on this? Do you have any inclinations? And you want to make a guess? It's a silly thing to even do, but here we are guessing about nuclear Armageddon. But it is on the table. It is staring us right in the face, and there's no effort whatsoever by any Western government, by NATO, by Europe, to de-escalate at all. They are not talking de-escalation at all.
I think the global catastrophes, the global outbreak of war and such, I think that will happen, my own opinion, in my judgment, sometime next year, maybe toward the end of the year, is what I'm thinking. We may have something regional even sooner. I think we can expect.
I'm afraid we're a couple of weeks away, or less.
Well, I'm thinking some major events. I think we can already expect next month, even.
There you go. Yep. The 8th of November is the date for the voting here in the midterm elections, and I don't know what posturing the Democrat candidates are taking now, or the GOP candidates, but if the House and Senate are put back into the province of the GOP, much of the weaponry that is hemorrhaging to Ukraine will stop. And that would give them, I think, more reason than ever to go ahead and pull off a false flag tactical nuke right now or right away. I just don't think they're going to wait.
I'm afraid I have to agree with you on that point, because it's just the logic of the thing is compelling.
It's linear thought, and it is pragmatic, and it's tragically so. I don't even like going there. We're not good. We're not good here. Now, if this war expands to or begins with NATO, the Russians have already talked about using their undersea weaponry to literally wash over the entire UK, as much of it as they can. They're going to take it out with ocean water. A couple of tsunamis, and it's all the south of the continent, or, well, a continent, island, is gone. It's gone.
I recall the late Father Andrew O'Brien, who warned people about this kind of flooding phenomenon that is going to take place. And he would say, and he told people, you want to be safe in Ireland, you're going to have to move like 30 or 40 miles inland.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't know how much inland is going to help depending upon the topography, but it's quite clear you want to try and locate some area that you can get to within very short order that's 5,000 or 6,000 feet tall. I don't know if you've got that kind of terrain there or not.
Well, but, not where I am. I'm on the south coast of Ireland, so...
oh, my. Well, okay. I don't know what to say. I hope I'm wrong on all of it. I hope nothing happens. But it doesn't look like that because I'm hearing absolutely nothing to the contrary from these so-called Western powers. Nothing. We will see. Thank you very much, Father Kramer. All right. Good to hear your voice. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye now.